Okay, guys, per your request on the polling here, as we last checked the tally, Micron technology ended up being your second choice here. So this is a tricky one. There's a few. This is kind of a good example where we have some imperfections here. So I've got the entire history here on a weekly chart. So we're going back to 84. You see, it's kind of cyclical what it does here. So we get the swing, the retrace, and then the big push, and we seem to be doing the exact same thing here, just at a smaller degree. So trying to get a count on this, it's a bit tricky in my process of elimination. I think we've got a leading diagonal here via 53535. Now, it's been a little sloppy on the corners here, so I'll show you what I mean. So you look here and you go, wonder why it stops there. So if I get this right on the pivot, all right, so we go to it, we get a very, very slight break there. It's slight, but it's a bit of a break. And then, interestingly, the reaction is severe. So algo driven, likely. It's hard to explain. It's a very slight break, but it's there. And then also the same kind of thing happening here. If I pull from this low to this, so we get one tick beyond it here. This is a 1-2 tick break here. So it's a little sloppy on the edges, just a hair. As we are out here on a weekly chart. So, so here we are sitting at the 50. So broad strokes, we're stuck between two golden zones. It's not, it just looks much like Bitcoin, right? So we've just got technical trading here. So just looking at this, so here, let's clean this up so we can see it a little bit better. All right, so we certainly have the conditions here that would warrant a look at it in log scale. So with a low down here of $1.31 and get right on our pivot up here at 60, what do we get, 64, 65. All right, so here you can see the structure of the leading diagonal. So we have, it's almost, it's not perfect, right? I don't look for perfection with Elliott Wave, but so here we've got 1, 2, 3. Now ideally, right now purists want to see that 3, tag that line, but what we do have 3 longer than 1, 5 longer than 3. And the subdivision, right, it's a little bit of a judgment call on some of this, but it does look like a 5, 3, 5, 3, 5 to get us into that format. And I go to it in log scale. It looks a bit more like a channel, but you can start to see the separation here. So the assumption you're making is that this entire move is connected, right? That it's all one big, in this case, motive wave with a very deep retracement. Now looking here in log scale here, right? So the fib makes the adjustment. So again, just to for you guys that are maybe perhaps unaware of this. So we can now tag the fib levels to base off of log scale. So we can get that. So you're looking for something technical between the start of the 1, the pivot of the 3. We don't quite, the 50 is where you're looking for it. We don't quite get it to get in that zone. It's a little tricky though, but so I think you're kind of stuck with what you've got here. So it looks, we kind of put together, I mean, you could pretty easily just use a channel on this. Might be easier to do that here. Well, in log scale, it'll be a little wonky. Something like that. So again, it's not quite perfect. So if I get the 1, right, gets me the 3, and with a little underthrow here. Now this, you kind of get my point here. So it's not quite textbook perfect, but certainly I think it's not unreasonable to consider this is all one move that's connected. So what we're doing now is potentially here. So if you're going to label that, right, with our Elliott hats on, right? Let's get this down here. Come here, God damn it. Get you up a hair. All right, so putting a count on that, it's not unreasonable to think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's obviously get that up. So we'll go to something big here so we can spot it. Here we can go to blue. Okay, so reasonable. I've got a 1 here off of the low, leading diagonal. So I'm anticipating, right, if the top is in, which we'll get to that in a second. So we'd be looking for something down here at the 50, just standard ops. Now, remember, I'm in log scale, so it's going to distort, go in and out of log. But here, given the range, I think we can stay with log for the time being. Now, what do we have here? If indeed this is an extension in the 1 that gives us the the fifth here into a double top, which is, you know, you pause just for a second, right? You prefer not to look at double tops if you can, because it's, you know, makes you question the count. But there it is, right? So you're kind of stuck with it. This is actually, technically, the 5 is slightly higher than the 3, so, but, you know, I'd call that a double top. So can we get, is the expectation, is it reasonable to think that something along these lines, I know we're going to go down this far? Remains to be seen. Now let's go out of the weekly. Let's go down to the daily here and take a look. Now we can come out of log scale here once we get more specific here. So here's what I was trying to show you. That's slightly higher here. So we do get a higher high here if that's correctly done. Now let's get this. Let's clear this up a bit. All right. So we can try and work from our low here. So this low being, this is the 2016 low. It's a bit of a judgment call here. I mean, we have very few retracements. Right, so this, you know, and then you're kind of struggling here because this certainly looks like a 3, right? So this looks like 3. So what do you do with it? You know, you're kind of stuck with it. So maybe it's a judgment call. So is this the one? Do we have to work backwards into a smaller one? Could be. You'd have to do it down here. But again, you're just looking for retracements here, and they're so shallow. This is the deepest thing we get. And that seems to be, all right, playing off of this. So front running that structure, maybe. Hard to say. Right? You might have been looking for that to come to just a hair lower. Looks like that may have been technical from this pivot here, at 50. Second target. It's a bit of a judgment call, but I wouldn't, right? I'm not going to, you know, this doesn't quite look right. Could be. All right, so this would be the 4 of the 5, A, B, C into the 4. I don't know that it matters terribly, and then again, you're kind of stuck with an A, B, C here. What I think, what's important, well, so, okay, so let's back up. So let's look at our pivot. So from this low to this low, well, I certainly want to check that. So going to this pivot, what do we get, right? So note, as we looked at this, get right, yeah, I'm on it. I'm on it. So it looks like it's a very, like a 1-tick break here, right? But, you know, we see it, right? This is already proven to be a little sloppy on the edges. So how do you explain it? Well, you don't. Well, you can't. So, but you know, the fact, so we get a 1-tick break of the 65, and then we push up. Well, this certainly looks like an ABC, right? So this looks pretty solid, right? So you look at that and you go, wonder why it stops there. So if we get that dialed in here, let's come back the other direction, get right to that pivot. So what do we do? Right, golden zone. You know, I mean, guys, we've got to be to the point now where, one, if I do that, you already know what's there because you've already done it. And I'd like to think we're past the point we have to wonder whether or not this is real in the markets, right? Whether this is how the markets move. Right? It's just software, guys. Right, so we're just stuck in a golden zone. So what do you do with that? Well, here's where the Elliott count can be helpful, because it's hard not to think, well, I've got some sort of well, you know, if we're looking for the 2, on the assumption that what we have here is the big 5 of the big 1. Let's get these all down here. And we're looking for an ABC. Well, this little 3-wave here right to the golden zone, boy, that sure does kind of line that up, doesn't it? You know, you're already down here looking for the 2. So maybe you could get something along these lines here. So we get our pivot down here from one golden zone to the next pivot golden zone. So maybe we can get a push down here. So we get a little hot box down here. So we kind of reframe this. Right, so reasonable targets down here, so I could probably tee up right with that kind of angle. I've got a potential golden corner on the sell side. Right? Kind of tease that up rather nicely here. So could this be A, B, going for the C here? Let's we'll keep that in yellow. Let's take these guys down a degree and put that in blue. Okay, so an beautiful ABC right into the golden zone. I get a golden corner. Now we've had a little move and we're retracing, so you can't, remember the caveat is always that this pivot must hold. So if this is going to push higher, if this is a retrace and we're going up again, well, now you got to maybe rethink this. Because here we're technically just gorgeous, perfect, couldn't be better. You know, you barely, looks like you can dig the 3, 4, 5 here of your C, so you can get your pivot here. So this, if this is going to play ball here, this is potentially, now let's get this out of here. No, I'm still on a daily here. Let's zoom in there a bit. So 1, 2, you know, I wouldn't assume anything other. Let's get you right on that pivot. Okay, so we can get this one out of here. Let's get this one out of here. All right, so there we are, right into the golden zone. If I'm right on these pivots, let's get you tightened up. Worth doing it. All right, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but you want to get these precise, as precisely drawn as you can. And remember, as you change time frames, they'll get askew a little bit. So you've got a contender here. Now, this is already deep. So if this is 1, it does look like there's a little ABC in that. If that's the 2, you'd be looking for something like that. So I'd be wary of this, but so what you potentially have here is just the retrace here. Now, that's going to be deep for if this is 1, 2. So remember, there's an algo on both sides, always an algo. So here's the 50. Now that's going for this target. So let's think about that. So here, this 50 is looking for that. If it were to do that, we don't per an Elliott count, we don't invalidate here. We'd lose this. So the golden corner would be lost. So we'd be up here at the 786. Now once we get that pivot, that we don't know if that's what happens. Right, then the odds are recreated. We still maintain 80% probability, right? But the pivot has to hold. Right, that's always the caveat when you guys hear me railing on about the odds here. It's just particularly advantageous to be able to do it from a golden zone because the risk reward is so good. That's why we look for those and why we like them so much, because you can get into that, right, with this as your target, and you got a very tight stop here just on the other side of the 65. Not a tick. Right, we've already seen that this is prone to break by a few ticks, so I'd be giving this a little more cushion if you're looking at the short side. I'd probably do it with options, but just to not tie up capital, right, in a short sale, because you just don't get the same leverage selling short with an equity. So I would do it via puts, or maybe sell some call spreads to offset the cost of the put. I'd buy in the money, right, because you don't want time decay to eat away at your options. So maybe, right, something to be watching for here. I'd like to see this give me a pivot and maybe start to push away from this, because right now this is just a challenge. Now there's going to be defense here, right? So this algo, right, will defend here. There'll be an effort here to try and sell that to prevent the break of the 65. But at the end of the day, right, you know, right, this right, we don't know who's behind them, but this sell side algo, right, they're gonna be pushing to get to that. Right, so the battle zone will be right here. What happens there, right? Can they get through it, right? Which we've seen. Now you'd want it more than a tick or two if they can get to that target. Well, now you're just relabeling here, and you're thinking, oh, A, B. Okay, guess I've got another kick here for the C. The whole thing would push up here. So as I just showed you. So that's what I see there. It still all seems to be implying that we need a deeper correction here per an Elliott count, because this is tough to call this a 3. Right? I mean, it's tough enough to get a 5 out of there, but you can dig it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can get it. It's not gorgeous. But ABC here. So you can't assume, right, anything, right? So right now you'd say advantage to the bears per the structure of it, the Elliott count, but all it takes is that move right there, and now you're kind of questioning. So I'd approach this with caution. I'd want to see a reaction here. I want to see, right, do we get a double top here if it's going to go challenge that, or does this start to move away? You might even wait for something, you know, get a deeper retrace, so you have more confidence in this pivot. Right? I know it's golden zone. We got this very nice structure here. This is a little shaky because look at it, right? We're down here. Let's go 8 hour here. Do you really have that? Let's try 3 hour. So this is your lower low here. You have to do this 3, 4, 5. Obviously that's way too big. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's shaky. That 1-2 is not ideal, right? So you're already a little bit shaky on that. Now the golden zone, sure, that's very attractive here, but you've already had the first reaction to it. So if it's going to be tested again, I want to see that defense come into play. I want to see that get defended and then start to push away. Now the advantage is, or if you're thinking about constructing a trade, if you were doing something like selling out of the money calls to offset the cost of a put, the higher it goes here, well, the calls are appreciating in value and the puts are decreasing in value. You're trying to get delta negative. So if it comes up here and pushes that, what I would do, let's see, I would sell the call spread on the other side of the 787. So maybe you're selling a 58.60 call spread in enough size to at least cut the cost of the at-the-money put in half. Now, you're not, at the risk reward here, you're going to be delta negative, so you're going to need to be right directionally here. But if these just decay, at least you're only putting half of the cost of the option at risk there for the possibility that it just goes sideways, right? That you get this, and right, so then the time decay burning the option that you bought, but advantageous to you on the credit spread that you sold. So there you go. That's what I look at this, right? So you're going counter trend with the broader market if you're looking at the short side here. So that's why I'd be cautious with this, and I wouldn't be doing big size here. But there you go, right? It's technical. Okay, guys.